again.
Yeah, that is good.
It is nice to not drop any frames anymore while while doing streams. So this is like
How's,
this is the first one that we're doing.
oh, let me get my thing.
Yeah. This is
How's
the
that?
first one that we're doing with no frame drops. This is the first live stream that will have no frame drops whatsoever.
Nice.
I don't know where to start today. This one's a little more laid back.
So I get my. Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I don't know where to start, but let me tell you, the last couple days has been. Michael was gassing up the family room, Mom. I'm gonna be honest with you. He was gassing up. I walked out. I was like, oh, I don't know if he's watching. I told Dad that we were doing the live stream. He's like, oh, we might watch. So he's probably sleeping. So for our viewers, my dad came. So my brother is going down to Miami. So my dad did an 8-hour trip to me, and then today they did the 12-hour trip down to Miami. I don't think Michael probably slept through the whole thing.
Every time I spoke to him, he was sleeping.
Yeah.
I was
So
taking a nap.
Dad was making calls. I was like, oh, he must be alone. Probably couldn't play music because he didn't want to wake Michael.
They listened to a couple podcasts, but you can't blame Mike because Dad doesn't like to give up the driving. I keep saying, even if you just trade off for an hour, it's a break. Let Mike
Yeah.
do an hour, and then you switch back. But
I'm kind of like Dad. Like, I don't want to stop if I don't have to.
yeah, I get it, but that's not a trip, a 3 or 4 hour trip. I mean,
Yeah,
you have
that's true, too. Yeah, you don't
I
want to
couldn't.
deal with that.
No, and I literally could not sit that long because my knee and whatnot, and for him with his back, like you're just causing trouble for yourself, buddy. I think you really
It
need to
is.
take a break.
It is wild how what's up, Phil? It is wild how long like he and Kenny did the 19-hour. That's oof. The full
Straight.
19. Oof.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that.
but I think Ken probably did some of the driving, whereas Mike didn't
I
this
don't know.
time.
Well, the tough part was Missy Buns in the back, right? Missy
Oh,
Missy
right.
just screaming the whole time. Eh.
No,
Eh.
she was
Mwah.
mwah,
Missy. I've
mwah.
only heard that noise come out of her a couple times.
Yeah.
But I just
All
realized
the
I
way to
never
the
changed
airport every time
the
you take it.
podcast. I never changed the name of the podcast.
Whenever we go to the airport, that's what I got to hear. Mwah.
Mwah.
It's cute.
uh, yeah, luckily they don't have to do that. But Dad, as I said, Dad was here. Dad made his pasta. I don't know if you've had this pasta thing before. I don't know if he told you.
I heard it was a little bit spicy, but
It's hot. It was good. It's just hot. And then played a crap ton of pool.
right.
Crap ton of pool. So my back's a little stiff from leaning over the table. But Mike played well. I'll give him that. I was
Yeah.
I was like,
As long as you
Michael
don't
can't do angles.
get
I
that
play
pool
every now.
table.
Yeah, I play every now and then, but it's pretty rare for me to go over there. There's one older guy here that he'll just run a table. He's like Papa. He'll just run a table. I'm like, well, this is fun. And he plays 9-ball pool. 9-ball
Okay.
pool is annoying because it's a diamond. That's the one that's like the full diamond. And
Yeah.
the way you play 9-ball is you have to get balls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in order.
Oh,
Right?
interesting.
But what sucks is so let's say I make 1 through 8 perfectly. If I miss
Yes.
that 9th ball and he puts that 9th ball in, he wins.
Oh,
So that's why it's tough. So loser breaks. So I'm always breaking, and I haven't quite figured out with that game. Do you want to keep it? Like all the balls tight, or do you want to open it up? But you
right.
must have to keep it tight because you don't want you don't know the one ball is in the front. So you literally go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the only way to get the one out is by slamming it.
Right.
so
Right.
so I think I gotta start making him break when I see him, but I don't play that often with him.
Right.
So
Well, he probably was looking for somebody. I'd be going on a regular. See you Friday night. Meet you here Friday night at 10.
yeah, he's an old dude. He's like I think he told me he's 87 and he still plays.
Oh.
He's there like probably 3 times a week. I would say, maybe like 2 times a week. So he does he just dominates in pool. So he and
Learn a
Papa,
lot
I would
from
like
him.
to see. Yeah, I would like to see him and Pops play.
Learn
But
from him. Yeah.
what was the other thing that we did? We tried. So Dad likes putting his music to those TVs in there. So the way my apartment complex is, every room has a TV that you can Bluetooth to. And we were trying to get the Yankees game on for Uncle Jerry. and we couldn't get it. It would only give audio. So I was like, oh no, is Uncle Jerry just gonna leave because he can't get his Yankees? So
Oh, geez.
yeah, luckily no. Uncle Jerry's a good pool shooter too. Jordan's surprisingly decent too, in the sense that she doesn't play that much. So that's what I mean by surprising.
Right.
Yeah. So it was
I
fun.
think the first time I ever played pool, you always have that beginner's luck, where I remember playing, other people saying I played really, really well. Never again after that. It's just like a one-time thing. But we never had we had the pool table, but I never played it that much because I had little kids. We had it in
Yeah.
the basement. Dad played it a few times, and then later on, would have been nice to have just for something to do. But
Yeah,
down
when
the
I
road.
think about our basement, I don't know if you could really fit a pool table down there anymore. There's really no room to hit.
No, you could if we cleaned it out, but we don't need it in this house. Next house we'll
To a pool
probably
table.
have it somewhere or
I want
access to.
I want a pool table and a foosball table right next to each other, Ma.
Could do it. Could do it. Some of these places.
Yeah.
I don't
How'd
like
you?
when people are not keen on people putting pool tables on upper levels or even workout
Oh
rooms.
yeah,
Like upstairs. I prefer those on a basement level or at least ground floor.
Dad's dream man cave. Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about? Dad's got 4 TVs each side. It's a box, one TV in each corner.
Well, I don't want to use names, but there was a family in Peapack Gladstone. I don't think you ever went to their house. They had a party there welcoming our friends to their neighborhood years ago. And I just thought it was kind of cool. They had money, it was a nice house and all that. When you walked in, you had like a living room area. It was a set up right by the front door that was elevated. They put a pool table there.
Oh wow.
And they had like a sunken living room or family room, and that was the main sitting room. And initially I thought, boy, that's an interesting use of a living room. But then again, who uses a living room? And everybody was using the pool table during the party. So it was a guy thing, but also it was a very nice table. So it looked really nice in that room.
I'm one.
So you
If
could
you
put it.
if you're that into pool, it makes sense. But like some of my friends, they had it in their basement, and that's a good place for it. But like, there's a lot of people that if you play a lot of pool, you don't want to go in the basement every day, I guess. So that's why they have it on the main floor. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't care where it is as long as I'm playing.
Well, as I said, you can get very expensive pool tables.
Oh, yeah.
They're like as expensive as baby grands, and if they're done right, they have to be perfectly smooth,
Yeah.
level, the whole nine
Well,
yards. So it's a nice piece of furniture. It looked nice in their house. It wasn't like
yeah, if it's a good pool table, and Dad and I were looking at the pool tables because we were watching some YouTube videos. We put that projector to good use. The felt is really what makes it. Like I want one. Like if we were to do a pool table, remember when we went to Turks and Caicos? Oh, I don't know if you ever went into that pool hall, but those tables were like 10 feet long, and you could just gently touch the ball, and it would just go all the way down. It didn't even make sense. So those are the kind of tables. But I feel like the problem with that is we're so used to the crap tables. I feel like all of our games would just be ruined if we used a good table. We'd like, we don't want to, or worse, we won't want to play on anything else. Once you get used to it.
changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah.
You're like a skier. I won't ski in the east. I'll only ski out west, or I only ski the Alps because I can't go back to skiing in America. Oh, please.
That's like the other day we were golfing and the balls weren't rolling and everyone was getting mad, and I was like, guys, it rains. Like, there's no way the ball's gonna roll in the rain, but.
It's gonna happen. You got to factor all that in, right?
Yeah, our buddy Tom was getting angry that he was making putts. I was like, Tom, it's not what you're used to. Well, I don't know how much he plays in the rain, but he was coming up short on everything. And he was getting mad. And I was like, yeah, it's wet. I can feel it's wet. I'm slipping everywhere. So we're actually playing tomorrow morning. Uncle Jerry picked a 10 o'clock tee time. I was like, are you just purposely trying to screw me? Are you purposely?
Take the sunscreen.
Yeah, 10. Well, so if we play at 10, we'd probably get done at like 1:30, I would say.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, for somebody who lives in North Carolina and has been golfing, you are the palest person I have seen.
Well, thanks, Mom. Thanks. I only go.
Same thing. I'm telling you.
I only go. First off, I wear one of those umbrella hats. I'm always in the car. I sunburn, but I don't really tan. It just fades pretty quickly. I get eaten alive by bugs. Eaten alive. And Uncle Jerry's like, I don't see any bugs. Mom, my ankles have been itchy. That's how bad.
Well, first of all, you need to get some off when you're on the golf course and spray that. And use sunscreen and get some sun on you. I guess you have to wear a
Mom,
collared
I
shirt.
can't backswing if I'm all lathered up.
No, but you have to wear a collared shirt at this
Yes, you
course
have to. It's a nice
and
course.
sleeves, right?
Yeah, you can't just show up and
Like on your legs, what are you doing that you're not getting it on your arms and your legs any color?
existing. I don't know.
God,
Yeah. I just
my
don't
son's
really.
a vampire.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't burn. Or I'm sorry, I don't tan. So like, I just burn and then fades back to paleness, I guess. But
Well, that's why I said you got to take the sunscreen, and every few holes while you're waiting for your hit, put some more on, and you're gonna get a gradual tan. Even with
say to
sunscreen.
my new friend Garrett, "Hey Garrett, can you lather me up?"
Yeah, no, I think you
Garrett.
can, I mean, in your arms, for God's sakes, get some color in your arms, maybe a little on your face. I don't want you to burn, but I'm shocked you got zero color. How could that be? You live in the South.
Yeah, and I played on Wednesday, so I think Wednesday. Yeah.
You go with like an enormous brimmed hat,
Yeah.
like the lake
Everyone's got a duck when they're trying to talk to me.
covers your whole body.
I'm so inconsistent when it comes to golf in the sense of like some days my chipping's amazing, some days my irons are amazing, some days I drive really well, but now it's just let me try not to lose any balls. That's my new.
The clubs we brought down, will those be designated for you? Like are those Jerry
I hope Aunt Susan's watching. The second I got those clubs, and Uncle Jerry's like, let me take the clubs that I want. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, they are his, but I just thought that was funny because.
Complete set that was an extra that he just wanted to have, or was it actually, like you could use
No,
them,
I
right?
am using them. They are mine to use, which I appreciate. But between the four of us, there's so many clubs. Like everyone could just try something. Like you're never not gonna have a club, and
Right.
none of us take it that seriously. Where it's like, oh, you can't touch my clubs because those are my special clubs.
Yeah, but no, if you use them though, you should be wiping them down after
Nah.
after you.
Mom, after I hit a bad shot with Uncle's clubs, I just.
The mud and the dirt off of the bottom.
Yeah, just. Sorry, Uncle. Here you go. But
Now, at a minimum though, you have to dry them. Like
Well-
if you play when it's wet.
what's also funny is, so Uncle, I guess his gift to me when we started golfing, his present was he gets me these. They're essentially like junk balls, I guess you would call them. And I don't mean junk in the sense of they're bad balls. It's just they're like the bare minimum balls. So it's a bulk amount in a bucket. So they're like no name brands or whatever. They're fine for me, but they have special balls. And Uncle Jay was telling me he gets them at a discount, but for $60 he gets, I think it's like 2 dozen or something like that. He was telling me the number. I don't really remember it. But like if they lose a ball, Mom, they're spending minutes to search for it. If I lose one, I'm just like, go for it. But to Uncle Jerry's point, once I start paying for my own balls, if I ever do. But here's the problem with golf. Like the second I have no balls left, I'm good. I don't need to golf anymore. Yeah. That's just yeah. I'm like, once I'm out of balls, I got nothing else to play. So I'm going through. Luckily, I've been pretty good. I haven't been losing any balls. But I'll always find some that people leave, so I always end up in the positive anyway of balls. Like I don't care if it's 10 years used, I'll use it. So I'll throw those in, and I just hit them with the ball wash. So I just try not to lose it. I'm stingy. I got Dad's genes. Sorry, Dad, if you're watching. But that's why I just don't. Yeah. So I'll go through those, and then once those are done, I'll start taking Jordans that are in her ball bag that I don't know if Uncle Jerry knows about. So that's what I.
Well, you might have to spring for a bucket of balls one of these times.
It's not expensive. It's like $30 for like 20 balls or something like that.
Like I said, you may have to spring.
It hurts, Ma. It hurts. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, but as I said, I've been. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily getting better, but I'm losing less balls. Now, I'm going from 4 swings to the green to 8 so that I purposely don't lose them. So I'll do like light chips all the way like I'm playing hockey. Keep it on the ground.
And do you spend a lot of time saying, never had a lesson?
Yeah.
Had a lesson.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, it is fun. There is something fun to it, but there's no way I can do a full 18. Like usually by the 5th hole, I'm like, okay, are we done? Like, are we halfway through? And then I go, okay, we got a couple left. Because by the end,
9, like usually.
yeah,
9
they do the front 9 to the back 9. It's really that's just how they do it. But Mom, by the end, I'm sweating so much that I'm just like, can I go home? I just want to leave at that point. But I'll say this, and I said this to Dad. Uncle Jerry definitely has it. You can tell he's a veteran golfer because he's got it down to a T. He's like, I got this shirt. This is my backup shirt. This is my cooler. So now I'm starting to. I bring my Yeti cup. That's about it. My Yeti cup with glass. Yeah.
That stuff's cool. I've been using mine everywhere now because it definitely keeps your stuff much cooler. I can leave the water in the car. It's still cold when I get back in. That was my problem. I was never drinking enough water because it gets hot by the time I was finished wherever I was going.
Yeah. My one thing that I like to do is some of the holes have a fan, like a giant fan. I'll just quickly get it to the green so I can stand at the fan. I'm like, who's next? Screw it. Let me hit. So, yeah, it's fun playing golf with Uncle and Tom.
Good people to learn from. I know Uncle's a solid player.
Yeah, Uncle's pretty solid. I mean, his off days, I'm always thinking he's going to hit me just like out of anger. He's like, Chris, get over here. I'm like, Uncle, please no.
Don't beat me.
No. I wouldn't say they're competitive. They're not competitive against each other. They're competitive against themselves. So if they're playing poorly, they're like, man, that sucked. But, yeah.
I'm surprising because your brother, as the listeners may know, he plays quite a bit or has played quite a bit. He made a comment recently about learning etiquette, like more of the golf etiquette from his friends who play more often. And they were nice about it. Like they would explain, it didn't matter to them, but like, just so you know in the future. Which I said, but really, you don't know that by now? I would think you play so much golf, you would have a lot of the etiquette down. But I don't know.
All I know is don't step on someone's line. That's really the only etiquette I know.
Well, you're not supposed to stand behind them when they tee off.
Really?
Kenny was doing that. Yeah, you shouldn't stand behind somebody when they're teeing off. You got to go to the side or something. And Kenny says, I like to stand there because I can watch their hit, but you're really not supposed to do that.
That is true. I definitely lose. Garrett's good at following my balls that go out. I'm like, man, I didn't even see that, and I'm the one that hit it. So, yeah, we don't take it that serious. But to your point, if I was playing a serious game, then I'd probably get a talking to.
But it's good to learn that etiquette. That's what I mean. That's valuable. I assume Uncle Jerry knows all that stuff. Maybe he's more informal, but sure. I would ask him those questions too, because someday you might be golfing with somebody that's not Jerry, and it's good to be. Sometimes it's enough that people can tolerate you if you're not good at a sport, that at least you know the basics.
I always yell during the backswing. Always yell. Hit it, Uncle Jerry! As it's shanks it. Mashed potatoes. Classic. Yeah. So.
I always say someday. Kenny was showing me, just how to swing the club and all that. I was practicing for a little while, but it was.
I revert to my baseball days for some reason. Like, haven't played baseball in decades, it feels like. But I still do the thing where you're supposed to keep your head down, but just out of habit, I pick my head up, and then I end up topping the ball. So it doesn't even get any loft. So that's where I'm like, those are the things that I need to do more often. Like because I don't golf that often, I don't. It's not second nature yet to do that stuff. Right. So and my putting's abysmal.
If you keep doing it, you will. You got to do more and more of it, and over time, you're apt to get better. The other thing is you should learn it the right way from the start because you don't want to get into a bad habit. Then you got to break.
I'm Happy Gilmore in it. Yeah. I'm doing the run up.
I was doing that too. I was treating it like a tennis swing. Kenny's like, that's not right. And he corrected it. But
it is amazing how if I try to kill it on a drive, it's going every now and then I'll have like a really good one where even Uncle and Tom are like, whoa, that's impressive. But the odds of me killing it and it being accurate right down the middle are like maybe 10%. But it's amazing how if you hit like 50%, it's still going to go pretty damn far. Like the club does most of the work. There is a saying that saying is definitely true. So.
Well, there's something to be said for that. And plus you guys have the power. So if you nail it, it's going to go far. I mean, between the club and your strength, it's definitely going to go far.
Yeah. Well, did Kenny ever show you the video of me when we went to the driving range by the Retro Fitness in Somerville? I was driving with a putter and I hit like 250 with a putter.
I don't
That's the only time Kenny has it on video still. I don't know if I have it, but he said I think I hit it like 250 with a putter. So giving it a roll.
offers lessons too, if down the road you're ever interested. If you want to
I
explore the
don't
street.
need lessons. It's more fun going and winging it.
That's
See, the
okay.
problem is I like it. I don't love it. I'm not
Right.
trying to be the next PGA guy. Right?
Right.
So for me, it's fun, and I don't mind playing every now and then if they enjoy the company, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just Tom's actually getting a surgery on his hand, so we're going to. It's like his last day golfing for 3 weeks, and he was happy
Okay.
that I was going, I guess. So that's why we were getting one more in before his surgery. Otherwise, normally I wouldn't play 2 times in a week. I wouldn't play twice in 2 months. So,
Well, how much does it cost?
well, it used to cost a lot because I was getting clubs, but it's $31 for
Well,
9.
that's not bad at all.
It's not
That's
bad
not
at
bad.
all. But with the clubs and stuff, it was like 52, and I was like, oh man, half.
Oh, not anymore.
Whoa, yeah. Now I have, yeah. So now, and Uncle Jerry and Tom play so often, they know them there. So Uncle Jerry's just like, if you just want to drive, like drive the cart, like you can. They just let us because they know I'm not golfing. But I don't know. That's if I knew the sport better, maybe I could caddy. But I'm just not. I have no interest in
Yeah.
that stuff.
Oh, meaning you get a cart.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So Uncle
That's-
Jerry can ask me, Chris, what do I use? And I'm like, go with the Texas wedge every time. Texas wedge is when you putt from the rough, basically. So just from like the greens are kind of neat at this course because you technically it is flat enough that you could technically putt from like the middle of the course and get it all the way to the green. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So you could Texas wedge your whole way there if you wanted to.
We were visiting Virginia, real estate, looking at places in Virginia, and some of these houses and developments were in golf courses. So that's the first thing you pass through is the golf course.
Right.
And I'm always amazed at just how perfect the lawn is. Especially, even Dad was like, "Look at that lawn! Look at that lawn! Would you look at that lawn?" You know?
That's a good lawn. You
Yeah.
got the patterns and stuff. You're like, oh.
Oh, it's so perfect. It's like you just want to go lay on it. It's like a perfect green, like a bed of green, and the variations, the dark green and then the light green with the
remember,
fairway.
remember when,
Fairway.
remember, I don't know if Dad's listening, but do you remember when Dad mowed the lawn where he tried to do a pattern? Do you remember this? This was like 5 years ago. Yeah,
still does
the first time he did the pattern, I think he tried to like write our last name in the backyard, and we're looking at it from his bathroom. We were like, "What does it say?" Do you remember that?
Sadly, I don't think he was trying to write anything. I think
We will
it
talk
just
about
looked
later.
like, what the hell was he doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, he still does the every now and then. You're supposed to switch it up, like we had that quality of grass.
Yeah, especially because there's parts in our backyard that it's not flat. So the back is marshy. Like you couldn't do it. It's not possible. Have you talked about
It's
it?
not even like a lawn. It's like it's just more of like a weed garden. Well,
Yeah.
some parts of it are nice. So we have patches that are nice. So that's what's so nice about these golf courses, like the perfect layout.
Yeah, it's a nice golf course. It's definitely not the nicest, but it gets the job done for what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
We're just happy if we hit.
And now once you get to the point where you have a decent game, you know the routine, you know the clubs, you have somewhat of a decent, and you know the etiquette, you could play anywhere, you know. If
So
somebody invites you to
with some
play,
of the words that come out of Uncle Jerry and Tom's mouth, I'm like, I don't think that's proper etiquette.
it's allowed.
Yeah, I don't think you can throw a club like that, Uncle Jerry.
You can put on all the collared shirts you want to, buddy. They're not going to allow
Yeah.
that at Trump National.
Exactly. So
You know,
yeah, so I've talked to Kenny about that. I don't know the difference between a super nice course and what we're playing on because I just haven't played enough courses. Like to me, they're all just the Green Knoll and Somerville.
Yeah.
They're all the same, but Kenny says that there's definitely a difference.
Oh yeah, there has to be because I did a couple golf outings, right, when your kids were little, setting them up. I didn't play in them. And you just got to see, people would come to this, it was a fundraiser, but they would come just because they wanted to play the course. They could care less about the fundraiser. Because it was a private club, they had no access to that course.
Right. That
So
makes
they
sense.
would
Yeah.
offer, yeah, you want to try different courses, and they know the good ones, and they even know the people who the pros who create the courses. Oh, that's a Jimmy blah 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 course. I've never been on one of his. I want to play that one. I want to play the other one. So yeah, there is a
Yeah, I
difference.
just don't know enough. I'm hoping one of our viewers, their dad, Gamer Phil, if he's still there, his dad owns like a golf course or something. They do kind of like what you're talking about, the fundraisers. Hey, Phil, get me on one of those courses, dude. This is what I need my viewers to pull through. So I know he
What's
plays a lot of golf.
his friend's dad owns one of the nicest courses or one of the top three courses in the world?
Yeah. Who?
Like what? Kenny's friend's dad owns one of the, or is part owner. I don't know the whole story, but he, out of the blue, Kenny announced, yeah, apparently over somewhere in Asia, the father owns a course. It's probably one of the top 10 courses in the world. I'm like, wow.
Gamer Phil said I'm here. Mike's, my youngest brother said, talk more about your favorite son who's driving in Miami. I'm surprised you're not sleeping, Michael. That's what we were just talking about. You probably just woke up. That was like, oh, they're talking about you.
Tell him that his mother says she's calling bullshit. You ain't driving nothing. It's your father driving. You're on the app picking out food to eat.
Yeah, well, getting those, what is it, the CPMs, those prices?
Yeah, he does the app thing and they order food en route.
Oh, man. Let me tell you. You know, I'm going to change topics here. I know Phil wanted to probably hear more about golf, but Michael goes to Harris Teeter, and he gets a pizza. And I guess it didn't have the sauce on it, but, Mom, we cannot allow this pineapple and bacon on pizza. Can you believe this? Have you been seeing him do this?
Okay. Yes, so when your other brother was home, he liked pizza because you don't get very good pizza down in Miami. So we ordered a pie, debate as to what to get. For some reason, it was enough of us here. Maybe Julian was coming over, but whatever. So we wound up getting two pies,
Right.
one plain and one with the half sausage, half bacon. Mike says, I would have liked to try the pineapple. I had a can of pineapple in the fridge. He opened it up, so it wasn't even like good pineapple, but he was really liking it. And you know, they'll do the personal pizzas at our pizza place. You can put anything on it. So he really liked it. So now he's into the pineapple pizza.
Yeah. I mean, well, he had to MacGyver that pizza the second day. He was basically, he was ripping it apart and putting it back together. I was like, oh, man. But
I hope he enjoyed it because there's not going to be very good pizza down there, according to his brother.
oh, God. Michael says, God, Michael said, my Uber driver wants to know who the beautiful woman on the left is. That would be my father asking. But yeah, so
I guess they are listening then, huh?
yeah. Well, I guess with that, we can get right into the topics for the day. We don't want to chew everyone's ear off. I don't know which one you want to start with, Mom. Do you have any?
I was going to say, when I was talking about Virginia, I had it in my mind. I was going to segue to the polling. An article came out that
Where's mine?
Harris is ahead in polling in
Virginia.
Virginia. And I also threw in there the Electoral College article. Didn't go too deep into it, but that so many people in the country, a majority of people in the country are now supporting the Electoral College. And the reason why I put that in there, as I said, we were driving around Virginia, and we were not in the Northeast closest to Washington, D.C., which would be like the Arlington area and Alexandria. But we were near Charlottesville, we were near Roanoke, Richmond, and everywhere we went, it was at least the ratio of 25-1 Trump to Harris signs.
That's exactly how it is here.
Right. And what was so interesting is then I come home and I see this polling, and I know normally when you're in no man's land, right, it's very different and you can't really gauge it. But we were near three pretty big, I think Richmond's the capital. We were near three pretty big cities, and not that far away from the cities where you'd say, all right, the city's a little different. They're all pro this, pro that. So then I see this and but then I noticed the Electoral College, and I just brought it because we come close to an election, and every now and then people throw it out, especially the last two elections, because the popular vote, the candidate has won, but they lost the election. So naturally everyone's like, oh, we got to get rid of the Electoral College. But this was a perfect example. I am telling you, in anywhere else but northeastern Virginia, seemed to be overwhelmingly Republican leaning.
Well, I mean, the saying's best. There's really no such thing as a blue or red state. There's just blue and red cities, and it's mostly blue cities. Like if you look at like a actual county line map of like Republicans versus Democrats, it's really only the cities that are blue. Like everything else is red when you look at a map. It's kind of
For the
weird.
most part,
Yeah.
but and that's the reason why I also presented Electoral College, because that is so important. And shout out to the founding fathers of our country, who had the smarts to say, you really can't let just the city people, you can't do it based on popularity. It's not fair to those areas that are not as densely populated, or those states that are agricultural states that just by the very nature they don't have the populace because they use a lot of land for their
Right.
state.
So,
They're meant to be like Texas and whatnot. So,
Mom, here's a sorry.
Yeah.
Here's a question because I'm sure our viewers are wondering this, and I've always wondered this. So, I saw a thing because there's so many independents now voting Republican ever since the last debate. Like they just had that big uptick in red voters. I saw that this is going to be the first time predicted since 2004 that Trump is going to win the popular vote. Like the first time a Republican wins the popular vote since 2004. So why does that not indicate who the president's going to be? I always get a little confused by this.
Because that's why we have the Electoral College.
Right.
Right. So if you go by a popular vote, all the blue states would constantly, and the blue cities would constantly be electing the president over and over again. Because instead of it being a popular vote, what they say is the popular vote in each state can decide the electoral vote. So they naturally put in, I don't want to say a buffer, but a level that the electors then cast their votes. Okay.
Okay.
And usually it's I don't want to say winner takes all. That's the wrong term, but that's a way of making it a bit fairer so that the blue states don't dominate the whole country. Now, some of the states have passed, have an agreement amongst themselves that if we get to 209 electoral votes, we're going to do it based on popular vote in our state. Mm-hmm. And of course, Republicans are fighting that because no, you can't. So in other words, states are going to start colluding and saying, we're just going to go with the popular vote. Once we hit 209, the state's going to decide it on the popular vote. You really can't do it that way because then you wind up cheating. Like I said, those states that don't have the big cities or the big populace, where their vote will never matter, right? Because they don't have enough people geographically to make up the popular vote. And then if they're not a big enough state, they will not have the number of electors to cast enough votes. That's why on election night, you have to get to 270. And, when you watch the map, they'll say, well, Pennsylvania has 19, so it matters, versus this state that only has 2. Right. It's based on the size and the population. That's why that census is so important, that they do every 10 years. That's in the Constitution.
Gotcha.
You have to count people every 10 years.
Damn.
That's what they base representatives and electoral votes on.
It is amazing how far the founding fathers thought. It is amazing.
Yes.
So, Mom, this isn't an article that I have, but it kind of goes with this. So when we see all these, I don't know if you've been, I'm sure the podcast you watch, I've been talking about it, but I don't know if you saw, but like North Carolina just found like 700,000 fraudulent votes. Like there were unregistered votes. Did you see this?
Yes.
So like how does something like that happen? Because I just feel like the ballot stuffing, whatever you want to call it, I feel like that's a lot to like. Would you say that that's an uptick in what we've had before ever? Like I struggle to know what's considered the quote unquote, even though it's weird to say, what's considered a normal amount of fraud versus too much fraud, because we've always had problems with our elections.
All right. So, well, it used to be everyone knew there was always some degree of fraud in the elections. Mm-hmm. As we've spoken about on the podcast, and what people I don't think enough citizens, first of all, they don't understand the Electoral College and why it's important. And second of all, they don't understand our federal voting reality. And it is literally an honor system. When you register to vote, you're supposed to provide citizenship, okay?
Right.
You have to prove that you are a citizen. Every state can decide how they're going to do that because we are a federal system. The states make their own rules. But there are certain requirements that you need. However, when you vote on the federal level, as many of you know in each of your states, You don't have to necessarily show an ID and prove who you are. You may have to sign a book, which, up until a certain number of years ago, most votes were cast that way. You went, you signed a book where your signature was because you had previously registered. Then you go in and you cast a vote. Okay?
Right.
There were exceptions for people like the military, or if you were disabled. You would then, when you would register as military or as disabled, and you got what was called a mail-in ballot. Likewise for students, if you wouldn't be home during the election because you were away at college, you couldn't fly home to vote, so they sent you a student or a mail-in ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, over the years, when you're doing it on an honor system, you're also expecting every state, since they each have their own rules and regs, they're supposed to go in and do what's called a cleanup, okay? Which your generation especially should understand, well, how hard is that? It's not hard. It's if you choose to do it, because that's basically saying, right, who's dead? Get them off, okay? Who's no longer able to vote? Who hasn't voted in 10 years in our state? Obviously, they're not going to, or they don't live here anymore, right?
Gotcha.
As you know, if you move to another state and you register to vote in another state, you don't necessarily take your name off your old state.
Right.
Doesn't mean you go and vote, but it means your name is out there. So 20 years go by and Chris Catucci hasn't voted in the state he was in, your name is still out there. Nobody's taken your name off, okay? So now fast forward to all the issues with the 2020 election and COVID. They put mail-in ballots on steroids, right? Everybody was doing mail-in because you can't go to a polling place. You can't go be around people. When you do that, well, that's an interesting thing, because I can tell you here in New Jersey, I still get ballots for you three guys. You don't live here anymore. So I know you're not going to vote, right? Yeah, whatever. But other people get those ballots. They can fill it out and send it in. Who's going to know? They're just going to assume it was Chris Catucci. So there's supposed to be a process where you check the signature, make sure it's the right person, he's still in the state. What we're finding, and what they're learning in places, not so much North Carolina, but definitely in Georgia and Arizona, no one was checking those signatures.
Right.
Some of them were a complete farce. And that's why many people, not just the past president, has been pounding the table saying there's fraud, and others are saying there was no fraud. There's no proof of it, because nobody would look at that evidence in court and say, this is not John Smith's signature. And by the way, Mary Jones signed 8 different ballots because it's the exact same signature and the exact same name. That's fraud. Back to your original question. Since that election, there have been enough, especially in states that tend to lean more Republican legislatures, like they're the majority, they started looking at their election rules, because American citizens have very low confidence in our elections after what we saw in 2020 and subsequently what's come out.
Right.
And we're learning, anybody who's following it, every state, I feel, especially, they focus now on the swing states because we have an election coming up, and those are the ones that unfortunately matter, right? They're finding dead people on there, and not just 1 or 2. Like they used to say, oh, you always got to get 1 or 2 dead people. Oh, no, it's like 100,000.
Yeah. It's definitely
people
changed.
People have been dead for 99 years. Or people who were born in... Too close?
No. I was gonna segue. I was gonna segue. I was gonna say, hey, watch the segue, everyone. And maybe instead of voter IDs, we need to go by their DNA. Did you see this one that I sent you? 23andMe.
Yeah.
Oh, I just sent it to you before. This is kind of interesting because I don't know why I was thinking DNA and voter ID people, whatever. So, do you remember 23andMe? Like
Listen, you could just say, "Mom, you're boring me," and move on to
No,
the next
that was a perfect transition. That was a perfect transition. So with 23andMe, I don't know if do you remember that? That was the company where you send your DNA in and basically they would tell you your background. So the company just went bankrupt and they're closing down. And now they have all this data that they're just going to sell off, essentially, right? The whole point of that was we would never give away your data and information. And then now that the company's going bankrupt, they go, anyone want to buy all this data? So it sounds like what's even worse is they are going to, basically the government's pushing to buy it, which is never a good sign.
Oh,
so that's why they're trying to figure out. I think there's a little more to it in the sense of they're trying to prevent them from taking it. But,
Well, I mean,
The
an
HIPAA laws.
anonymous,
That's what it was. The HIPAA laws are
right?
trying to prevent that.
Yeah, I don't know how, you could get around that unless it's totally just fact based with no names, no
Exactly.
so, no identification whatsoever. But
It's
how valid is it?
Yeah, it's still your DNA. I wonder. So again, not to be gross, but I wonder how much of them are like, "Hey, we're just going to give you all these tubes," because I think 23andMe you do like a mouth swab, so
Yeah.
that's
So,
pretty accurate
interesting.
DNA. So I wonder if they just keep all those test tubes. Do they give those test tubes to whatever medical company wants to buy it, or is it just the data? That's where I go, oh man, I don't know if I want another company having that. Like, it kind of makes you think about if you were to give, like, let's say a company came out tomorrow that had all these promises, and it's like, oh, you got to give your DNA. What happens in 10 years when it goes bankrupt? What are they going to do? Just sell your sell your information?
Well, yeah, I've never liked these kind of businesses. I would never. First of all, I don't care about my family tree because it's in the past, doesn't
No.
change anything for me. And second of all, now maybe I would feel differently if I was adopted and I didn't know my history, especially for medical
Um,
reasons.
all I want to know was if I was 1% African American, so I could say
You,
it.
you probably are. Just
I'm
throw it
trying.
to them. Who knows their family tree? Having said that,
I'm
I'm
too pale.
thinking, what I'm thinking more of? I think more of for police forensic information.
Yeah, that's a good
A
point
lot of
too.
people find out information like scary stuff from murders and whatnot that happened before we had accurate DNA
It's true.
collection, and now you might be able to track somebody down. In which case, you kind of need the underlying evidence,
Do you
the
remember that?
actual swab.
What was the name of that company of the lady who she was the CEO and she would fake this deeper voice? It was a company like 23andMe, and it turns out the whole thing was a fraud. This was a couple years ago.
Not thermos.
I feel like it was a pretty big one.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
called thermos something. I can't think. Thermos or thermopolis, something like that.
Female
Thermo.
CEO with fake deep voice, I guess. Fakes.
Put thermo. Why can't I think of it?
Where the hell is my producer, Michael?
There she is. Yes,
What is
thermo
it?
something. What's it called?
Theranos. Wow, good call.
Theranos. That's right.
Theranos
Theranos.
was a blood test company. That's what it was. And I think based on that, they were going through. They just basically found out that it was all fake. So I wonder.
We just got Mike's attention because he thinks it's the Marvel hero guy.
Yeah, Thanos or whatever. Yeah, I gotta watch those movies, but I forget where I was going with that.
She was an absolute nut job, by the way. That
Yeah,
woman, absolute nut
I
job.
don't know how she got so far. Like I don't know how you sleep at night going that far. You must be so nervous all the time. Like when is this gonna end? Like it's
Or,
coming.
right, or definitely somebody with that chilling conscience where she doesn't. She justifies all this stuff. But yeah, I mean, people committed suicide working with her over what was going on, or so I heard. I've never heard the whole story, like one of her people, but she's still fighting it. She's still trying to get out of prison, trying to appeal everything. And it was just, it is, I think my recollection of the whole story was she came from a lot of money, was able to tap into a lot of family money and just started the momentum. And it's all momentum and convinced a lot of people that, hey, this is a viable investment.
Yeah, I don't think I think they were even giving back like when people would give their blood or whatever. I think they were just giving straight wrong answers too. I don't think there was any science behind it whatsoever, if I
Right.
remember the story, which is probably true considering she's under arrest. Otherwise, no one would care. I don't remember the
Yeah,
whole background of that.
right. And there were some people that high level people. I'm thinking that it was maybe the DeVos family. She was the Secretary of Education. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure people of that level were invested in it. And these are not, stupid people, and they have people that do research and whatnot. So she ran quite
I was
quite the
telling
scam.
I was telling Dad the best research, the best investment research is Nancy Pelosi. Did you see she pulled out $500,000 worth of Visa stock like the day before the Department of Justice dropped it? Like even
Unbelievable.
Trump was like, "Okay, now we gotta start looking into this."
I mean, this is getting
That one's pretty egregious.
yes, it's getting ridiculous. It really is. And the sick part is too, how much more do you need, right?
That one's pretty
How much
blatant.
more money? Yeah, I mean, it's just like to the point where, sometimes these people fly too close to the sun. But in her case, what is she, 88 years old?
She's literally in the sun, and no one's doing anything.
And how much more do you need? How much more money do you have to grift off the American people and in your
Right.
position? These are multi millionaires already. She's in her 80s. Time to move on and get off the gravy train. But no, they're just that greedy. They just can't stop.
That's like
It's like
remember how do you Ruth Gator Ginsburg or whatever? It's just
Peter Ginsburg.
Bader Ginsburg. Thank you, jeez. That was dyslexia at its finest. Remember she had the private jet, and everyone's like, "Where the hell did she get this private jet from?" Remember that?
Are you sure it was her or not the Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the Supreme Court justice?
I think
Can
I'm
you
right.
Or do you mean the one out in California that had the Chinese spy driving her? She just
No,
died.
I'm pretty sure it was Ruth Gator. Who? Oh, maybe you are right. I don't know, but one of them, it was like, how the hell does this lady have a private jet in like 4 houses?
Yeah,
And it wasn't like a small private jet.
well, some of them come into office as wealthy people. Don't get
That's
me
true.
wrong. They have
Yeah.
a private jet before they're even elected. But in their case, I mean, it's it's one thing, some of these clowns that do it for the first few years, they grift, they get out. Nancy's making it a business, and she's doing it right in front of everybody, and is not wrong when she's untouchable. I mean, we believe it or not, there is an ethics committee in the House of Representatives.
Apparently not. That was pretty obvious.
People have not been confirmed because of questionable stock trades that are a joke to the Pelosi's, what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, at a minimum, it needs to be looked into. This is getting a little ridiculous.
Um. Yeah, that's a pretty. Yeah, it's just so egregious because I think Dad was telling me, and I don't know if I don't. Well, Dad was saying how apparently the husband, Paul Pelosi, like his stock trading number of how many things he gets right is like so astronomical it doesn't make sense. Like his percentages just don't make sense, and the guy doesn't even. His thing is real estate, I believe. His whole company is real estate. So this guy's not like a stockbroker or anything. He's just let me just I guess this one.
But he doesn't know to put some pants on and put his drink down before he opens the door to a guy with a hammer.
Yeah. I still want to know what the backstory to that one was. There's definitely something going on there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
He was too busy looking at the stock trades, wasn't paying attention.
Speaking of corrupt people too, the New York mayor, right? Governor.
No,
Yeah. No, mayor.
no,
Mayor.
it's
Mayor.
mayor,
Yeah.
city.
That guy. Yeah. But what's the story with that one? Just using improper funds, right? There's really no.
Wire fraud,
He's gonna get hit.
bank fraud, blah blah blah. But he's one that started to question. You never know anymore. I think he's a doozy to begin with, but why single him out? We got plenty of them just in the state of New York alone. He started to make comments about the migrants. Next thing you know, the FBI was knocking on his door. So who knows what's going on in New York?
So you ready for this? Because I was telling this to Dad and Mike. So we'll get to P. Diddy later. I know we already have some questions about P. Diddy. So the diddler, as we call him in this household. Apparently, like a month ago, he got into a lawsuit with Ciroc, the liquor company.
Yeah.
And he sued them for $1 billion about not wanting to work with African American content creators.
Who's this, Eric Adams, New York City mayor?
No, this is P. Diddy. Right? He sued them
Yes.
for $1 billion and won. And literally the next day, that is when they raided his house.
Yeah.
So it just kind of goes to show how powerful some of these companies are. Like I didn't realize how powerful the liquor companies are, but it makes sense because some of them have been around since like the 17th century. Well, probably 18th century more realistically. But they were there during the Prohibition days.
Yeah.
So it just kind of goes to show, to your point, like when you really follow the money trail, I guess is kind of the way you put it, that's where you really realize like the powerful. It's not so much powerful people, it's most of the powerful companies. And the way you know that a company like that is super powerful is the fact that you can't find the owners. Like, I don't know, if you look at a lot of these companies, they won't even tell you who owns them.
Yeah, it's a process to get to net it down to after all the steel companies and everything else. The part that I find very interesting and why it's we come back to this giant comes right back around again. We've been harping on the same topics, or maybe I have, about the FBI, the CIA, our security, and blah 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 blah. Pete Diddy was probably doing some bad things for a while, allegedly, and now we know it because now the dirty laundry's coming out. Where were all these investigators? Why now? To your point, right? So it took freaking lawsuit where he wins for them to say, all right, now we're going to drop the hammer. And they're not dropping a hammer on parking tickets. What they're alleging is some pretty scary stuff that this guy was involved in.
Yeah.
And some pretty serious allegations. And some women have come forward. Why are these women now coming forward? Another questionable thing.
Yeah.
And I just find not only the situation ugly, obviously, but the process is now becoming so corrupt as well.
Yeah.
And I just listened to somebody talk about, I forget what recent, corruption thing it was in our government, but they said, it's not even about the corruption anymore. It's about the cover up. Oh, you know who it was? It was Miranda Devine. Miranda Devine's a writer for the New York Post. I've had articles from her on here. She just came out with a book called The Big Guy. Not even alleging, because she's giving you all the facts of how the Biden family is still being paid for by, Chinese cover, whatever. So she put more information out there because she had done a book about the laptop, or a whole thing about that. And her point was, it's not even about them anymore. They're grifters. They're getting their money. It's about the cover-up that goes on. So I hear this P. Diddy story, and it's like layers of an onion. It keeps getting worse and worse.
Well, he messed up in the sense of his bail is like 50 million, and they still didn't even post bail. Like, they were like, no, you still can't get out. 50 million is what it is, and we're not even going to touch it.
Well, and apparently he's in prison with some other character.
He's not eating R. Kelly.
That's right.
Yeah,
right. Well, are they?
I don't know if they're. I hope they're cellmates. I don't know, but again, that might be an Epstein situation where they're just going to end up taking him out. So that's why he's scared to be poisoned. That's what he was talking about.
And years ago, he was dating, I think she was an actress, Kim Porter or something, and she died.
You're talking Diddy?
Diddy.
Yeah, there's been a couple murders linked to him.
Serious circumstances, right? I remember when that happened years ago, but naturally, like, oh, must be something, you don't think a celebrity. Pete did, he's just, at the time, he was just a, guy dating J-Lo kind of thing on the scene. Now you're finding out all this other backstory and how involved he is with other nefarious people.
Well, I think it's
the entertainment industry.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the Epstein story. It was, I bet you he was trying to kind of come up with his own way of controlling and manipulating people, which is why you look back and, right, Kobe was there like a month before his helicopter went down. Jay-Z, Beyonce, like, name them, they've all been there. Pink. So, Mom, everyone, like, after once it all came out that Diddy was going to jail and everything was basically true, the amount of celebrities that deleted their Twitters, their Instagrams, everything. And it's funny. It's like Pink. It's like the ones that are very left leaning. Let's put it that way. Very strange.
Right. There's a lot of conspiracy stuff that now, like, oh, I wonder why if Diddy was arrested because this thing happened or that thing happened. Back to my original point, like, I get it. It sounds, what they're alleging is serious stuff, but really, did it take us to get to this point that nobody was bothered? Our FBI, our crackerjack FBI, our crackerjack, nobody was bothering to look into what has been going on with this guy for how long? They had to wait till some corporation was wrong to say, all right, now we're going to weaponize the FBI and go after the guy and start digging into him.
What really saddens me is, and Dad brought this up, is now when you hear all this stuff and you think about Bieber's upbringing and Justin Bieber's upbringing, and now you look back at what kind of kid he was. Remember, he was the kid that was like egging houses, and you start seeing the clips come up of how he was essentially, like, that's a story that we're not going to hear about for a lot of years, but I bet you they'll do a documentary on that one about what Justin Bieber had to go through. Because I bet you that was a...
I don't know if you've seen Bieber. I mean, the guy just had a child with his beautiful bride. He looks terrible. He's way underweight, looks very gaunt, and I'm sure this is, upsetting to him if stuff starts coming out.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe there's things that he's not even aware of, because from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of stuff that went on at these parties that half the people there weren't awake half the time to know what was
given he was a minor, but
right.
Yeah, so he was probably in the clear anyway. But what was I gonna say? So what's weird though?
He did stuff, but to be a victim of stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, that's frightening also, and that's his reputation now.
Yeah.
It's going to really look bad on him, even though it wouldn't be his fault necessarily. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I bet you Usher probably feels like unless he's in on it, but Usher must feel like a real piece of garbage for bringing Bieber into that. Right? The whole story was Usher basically led Bieber to Diddy, thinking, "Oh, this guy's going to help him with his talent," and then look what ends up happening. So, again, we'll never hear the truth on that story. Maybe Justin will come out about it years from now, but
the only thing I would say difference wise, P. Diddy had a facade. He was a producer, right? He's
yeah,
clothing, he was
Epstein
delivering.
had nothing.
He was just Epstein. And that was another trigger. That's the other side of it for those of us who weren't in the know about Epstein because we're not in the political scene
Right.
or the New York scene where we heard his name. It was more of a like he came out of nowhere. He was an investment advisor, but that's all he did. He was just Epstein.
To my
And that's what
yeah, from what I've heard, he was really good at. He learned, and why a lot of people gravitated towards him, especially the wealthy. He was very good at hiding money. So if he needed to get money overseas, he was very good, and then he would say, "Oh, come on down, and we'll work on it or whatever." And
but he was very good because I'm sure he had complicit things to get
yeah,
people who could hide it for him.
exactly. So when it came to this day, no one knows where any of his finances came from. Like there was a whole documentary on basically trying to figure out where his finance. Like remember, he was just gifted like a $30 million apartment in New York City. Just gifted. It's like by I believe it was the CEO of like Victoria's Secret or something like that. It's just like, oh, no one looked into this.
Right, and back to my original point, it's beyond the crime of Epstein. All right, so now we all know the crime.
Yeah.
In years past, there would have been, criminal charges, exposés, and whatnot. Some people would get away. But now it's, how about the cover up? How was he able to do all that? Who was hiding him? And why is it such a stretch when one of his closest, I don't know, associates, will say, was the president of the
United
United
States.
States? So why would we think that this wasn't easy peasy and there's a load of corruption? And by the way, any of the listeners ever hear anything said about all the people in the black book?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Remember when there was a list of people and there's just nothing? Like the list is just gone.
It's been released. I think somewhere it was released. Nary a
Not a
murmur.
word. Yeah.
Right. I'm sure there were names on there, and apparently people who were trying, unless it was not the legitimate list, that could be it too. But yeah, it's
Excuse me.
it's another shocking thing where they tried to pin that to Trump too, and you're like, all right, they got him this time, and sure enough, they couldn't even pin that on Trump.
Right. But
Another,
it was that one was the only weird situation with that, and I think it kind of helps with the cover up of. Well, I guess Diddy kind of did the same thing. It's the fact that even if you did go to that island, you were still doing business meetings. If you took that plane, it was because there's actually like actual flight pads that was like, oh, we stopped there for 15 minutes, then went somewhere else. So it's tough to kind of, you can label or name all the people that were on the island, but you can't name what they were there for, you know? So like they probably went by, why'd you stay for 4 days? Yeah.
everybody knows what they were there for, Chris.
Yeah.
They may have called it a business meeting, or they might be backtracking and saying, "Oh, it was for business. I didn't know what was going on."
Yeah, but Trump did that same thing. Trump's taken that plane multiple times.
Right, but I think some people they tried to pin more on Trump than just that. Like he was really good friends with him, and he was at Epstein
Right.
was at Mar-a-Lago, and then the story came out. Yeah, he was there, and when Trump realized he brought like an underage person, or he heard what was going on, he asked him to leave. He got him out of there, and that was long before he was running for the presidency. This is just Trump.
I've never heard that story, but what I'm talking about is like George Clooney and all those guys who claim, again, this is a claim,
Yeah.
that they've been to that island, not during some party or anything, but just like you have to stop there to get to a certain place, so that's why they took that plane. And I don't know how true that is, but I just remember they redacted a lot of the names that were in that. Not political people for the most part. It was more so celebrities, I guess. But I mean, there's no way Stephen Hawking was going there for any other reason.
This is my cynical side. Maybe that's true, and maybe they don't want to admit to the fact that they had this layover and they were given opportunities that they were smart enough to say, "Yeah, no, I'd like to stay on the plane and keep
Yeah.
going." And that was Epstein's business. Just compile as much crap on whoever you can. The more important the person, the more leverage you have. That was the business, and that's how he made money. And he was able to hide it because he had a network of people that he probably had incriminating information on. I mean, it's just corrupt to the core, that whole situation. And then it exploded, and, his accomplice went to jail, and he's dead.
Right.
Apparently,
Yeah.
she's writing an expose, and that book's supposed to come out. But, at this point, does anybody care? And now you see P. Diddy, and you're like, this has been going on for how long? And it takes a lawsuit for them to finally say, oh, yeah, and by the way, there's a lot of criminal activity that's been
Yeah.
going on for a long
Well,
time.
Mom, his house, he had a basketball court, and there were king size beds on the court. It's like,
Yeah.
and not to mention 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
Yeah.
Matt Sprague said it best. I don't care if you own a masseuse company. Even they don't have 1,000 bottles of baby oil. And it's so true. No, yeah, that's a ridiculous amount. So, yeah, weirdo.
But in answer to what you said about Bieber, good thing California passed a law that money for child influencers must be protected.
Yes, Mom. I need the protection, Mother. I need to keep them away. I need my money away from you.
I feel like I should be getting a cut here because apparently minors who are featured in monetized content, 15% of the money has to go into a trust for when they turn 18.
Okay.
Right? If you're 16 and under, you're going to get compensated if within 30-day period you are in at least 30% of the video or in the content. So you got to pay somebody.
Well, thank God you're not under 16, Mom.
I know, I'm not getting anything.
No, you ain't getting shit, Mom.
I think, I don't know enough about the whole compensation structure.
Right.
I can't judge if this is fair, not fair, but I will say, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it because, like, for instance, with you and me, we're family, we do it with a goal, monetize, not monetize, but for all of a sudden the government to come up and say, hey, Chris, now you have to pay your mother because she's been doing it for a while, right?
Oh.
Like, they feel the need to protect my own, or they say I have to pay, whatever. So in this case, they took, story after story towards the end about families who have been doing this as to supplement their income. And there's a mom there. She talks about her life with her sons because she left work and she figured, all right, I can do a podcast or I could do a YouTube channel, and talks about that and makes money doing it. And now all of a sudden the government's saying, oh, but wait a minute, you got to put some of that money away for your kids.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't mind that in the sense of if the kids are like a main part of that podcast or whatever, then yeah, I guess that makes sense. But if they just show up here and there in videos, then I don't know if that really makes sense. But I just think of the Macaulay Culkin law, which everyone knows the story about Macaulay Culkin, which essentially his parents were just taking all of his money when he was making millions of dollars. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they.
But this different because the kids are part of the platform. It's
right.
a family thing. And to me, it kind of falls under the family money, and it's up to the parents, since it's their kids, to decide what to do with it. If you're, Miley Cyrus and you work for Disney Channel, yeah, you should have to put a portion of that money away. As a parent, she's working for an outside source, and, it's not your money, and that goes in. But the dynamics of these platforms and what people are doing. It's just, here's our day as a family doing our thing.
Yeah, there's definitely no question about it. There's definitely some parents that have made entire careers on YouTube just doing that, which is why I don't mind that idea, because there's definitely a lot of influencers or influencer families that have these essentially kids channels where the kids are more so the priority and the parents are taking the money. There's a kid in, I think it's China. I forget where the kid's from. He might have moved to America because he was doing so well. It was Ryan's Toys or whatever. And Ryan was like, it's kind of sad now, honestly. But Ryan, when he was a kid, right, he would do all these toy commercials. Basically, he would just get sent toys to try. People watch the videos, and then kids would buy them. Mom, I think for a while he was like the most paid YouTuber. He was making like $4 million a month or something like that. And now he's like 25 because the years, and he's still playing with toys. It was like, Ryan, it's time to put it away.
Yeah, he's old now.
Yeah, I don't know how old he is.
I just find that young kids aren't doing it on their own. And if they are, in my opinion, they shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be. I agree.
They shouldn't have parental no 8-year-old should have his own social media platform, not without some
Oh,
sort of parental
100%. Yeah.
supervision. And for that reason alone, it's the, we have to have cutoffs in this country. All right, it's getting out of hand. In some states, you could take a kid and do surgery on them if they decide they want to be a guy versus a girl. Now they're coming in and saying, as a parent, you must put money aside for your kid, and we're going to tell you how much you have to do it. Again, if it's outside income source, okay, but to some extent, it's the parent's responsibility, and therefore the parents should have control. And no, it's sad if a child does get screwed by it, but technically they're under parental control.
Yeah, that's
They're
true.
not doing this on their own. I'm assuming the parent is watching it. Maybe they're helping facilitate it. And if they're getting that involved in it, yeah, you're going to have Macaulay Culkin situations, but you can't legislate all of that. Bad things do happen. You just can't legislate it all.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I don't know. Again, I think if the kids pop up every now and then, that's one thing. But if you were to have a channel that revolves around those children and then the kids don't get paid, then it's like, oh, well, they're the content. The parents aren't the content.
But hold on. How are they not getting paid? They live in that house. They're eating. They have a roof over their head. It's going possibly to a college fund. Or if the
Maybe.
parents are keeping the money, it's like anything else. Your mother and your father bring home a paycheck. What, are you supposed to carve out 30% for your kids because your government tells you have to?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I just feel like, okay, so the kids aren't working and they're not generating the income that comes in a paycheck.
Yeah.
But still, some things should fall under the family umbrella. And we can't legislate everything, and there will be wrongs. I mean, I'm not saying every parent's perfect, but I really feel like when they're saying, well, if they're within 30-day period, they're in at least 30% of video or content, you must pay them a percentage. What? Okay. I'd be curious.
Well,
I mean,
my answer is any parent that's willing to put their kids on YouTube is already kind of crazy to begin with. So I I think this is more so California knows that these people are crazy, so we're gonna make them do this just in case. But
right.
yeah, that's what I don't
Oh,
know. I really don't.
figure out a way how to tax it. So they can tax them twice. That's probably what it is too. Now they'll tax all the kids' money
That could
above
be
and
it as well.
tax the parents.
Yeah. What other ones do we have? I think we really just have this one left. The good riddance. The ex New York City star who hosted the secret drug fueled orgies during lockdowns and missed to 40 vaccinations. Who
Wait,
the
so
hell is this guy?
Okay,
I'm
Dr.
listening. I'm
J.
just gonna grab water.
The New York City former COVID czar, one of the key architects behind the city's draconian lockdown. So somebody got this guy undercover admitting that, they were forcing vaccinations by making people's lives miserable. He's basically saying all the things that everyone said was crazy during the whole, COVID. Why are we doing this? And this is kind of along the lines of, as we've talked about on the podcast, when Gavin Newsom had the lockdown in California. Next thing you know, he was having a party at his winery. So it wasn't just going on, oh, gee, sorry, made a mistake. Or Nancy Pelosi was getting her hair done when nobody else was allowed to go to a salon. And here we have this individual admitting on camera, same kind of scenario. Oh, yeah, I was having all these parties, which not just parties or, like Newsom did at a vineyard or getting his hair done. This guy's having sex-filled parties with drugs and everything, and admitting to this on camera.
He's got my vote.
He was the senior advisor for public health during the whole COVID thing.
That's unbelievable.
And I put this article, and I also put the other one, former CDC director endorses Trump. So Robert Redfield, some people might recognize his face. He was in the other article. So these kind of went together. Robert Redfield, he was also the head of the CDC during COVID. One of these ones that would, make all these, had many of the, backed up all these statements about distancing and no, it didn't come from, we have no evidence that it came from a lab and everything else. So lo and behold.
Hey, Mom, who's Colin Rugg? Because this guy's always on Twitter. I see this guy all the time. You know who this is or no?
No, I don't know him.
Okay.
Some sort of
He's just. I thought he was just he's a co-owner of Trending Politics and Investor America. I thought he was someone that I should know, but he has more Instagram, Twitter posts, or just Twitter posts than anyone I know. He's a guy that I feel like makes a whole living just on Twitter.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he's a political pundit or opinion person of some sort, but he does post I see his name from time to time, but I also see a lot of names pretty frequently. But he seems to perhaps be following RFK quite a bit. And this article is really about RFK saying, Redfield reached out to me, and this was a guy that RFK wrote extensively in his book, also with Fauci, about just all the stuff they did during COVID that was just not science based, not fact based, et cetera, et cetera. And out of the blue, he winds up reaching out to him. They had lunch, and he admits to RFK that, and it says at the end, first thing he said to me is this: "You got everything right." Okay, so couple this with the last story of the COVID czar in New York City enforcing draconian rules and lockdowns, and people like you and me saying something's not right here and getting
As we get
deplatformed.
channel strikes, yeah.
Yeah, and here we are, okay? And now you've got the same individuals. He admitted on this, but Redfield admitted not too long ago that, yeah, it probably was a lab leak. After being the one saying, no, no, no evidence, no evidence, Then they come out and say, yeah, probably was a lab leak. Okay, well, great. And now he's telling RFK that, you got everything right, talking about, years and years of vaccines and how it affects kids and how unhealthy people are, and now about COVID. And now we have this guy admitting it, and stories now are coming out as we're hearing about these lockdowns. And you walked away, but I was saying about Gavin Newsom with the winery.
I heard you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just thought the hypocrisy of that whole situation is becoming so evident that, you'd have to be, I don't care what liberal, conservative, whatever, you got to wake up to this fact that you were played in a big way.
Like a fiddle. Right. All right, Mom, you want to go through some Q&A questions? We'll just do
you didn't talk about, I just wanted to say one thing.
Which one?
You sent me the Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I didn't save that one, surprisingly, so I wasn't sure if you got it, but...
I only want to make one comment about that, because the first thing I thought of was, and especially looking at all the pictures in that article, I'm warning everybody now, this is just a nerd conspiracy to get everybody to look as nerdy as they do.
Those glasses were very thick. I was like, whoa, there's no way anyone was wearing those out.
Every one of the people in the picture wearing the different glasses, I'm like, are they kidding me?
It took them 10 years. It took them 10 years to create that. It's basically just thick glasses. It's like
they are just going to all get together when the first, football player puts those on, or some big popular guy at some school puts those on. They're all going to be like, we did it. The nerds finally.
We did it. Or worse, that guy's going to get bullied to no end. And they're like, oh, no, bail out, bail out.
Yeah. I think they look at it more like this has been their plan all along, to bring all the cool people down to their level with these freaking glasses. I'm like, no way am I putting those glasses on.
Any questions? Question mark? Let's see, what do we got? From Zia, do you think that immigration will be more strict during and after the World Cup? Reason of this question is because during the Copa America, there were a lot of Colombians on the stands than the other.
That immigration will be
more strict after the World Cup? I don't know.
To our country? Immigration to our country?
So I think the reason that he's saying this is because the World Cup is going to be held in America next time.
Right.
So do you think that immigration will be more strict during the World Cup?
What year is that? 2025?
2028? The World Cup's every 4 years, I believe. Let me see.
Off the bat, based on what he or she is asking, my comment is it depends on who wins in November.
Say that again?
The answer to that question is it depends on who wins in November. So in other words, based on what they're saying, based on their actions, I should clarify that. If
yes,
it's
a lot of people. I see. Yes, because I know a lot of people stayed after the championship. So basically, yeah. Why do you have your tape when you're not playing? I just forgot to change the title. That's why, Campbell. Sorry. Yeah. So I maybe it'll be more strict in America. I think it's gonna be harder just to get in if you're from another country trying to get into the World Cup.
Okay, so I'll say it again. If he's talking about people coming to the game and never leaving.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll get in using whatever
Visa,
visas or
probably.
methods, right? If they're required, will they leave? And interesting question, but and that's why I say it depends on who wins in November. Um, Based on the actions of the two administrations, if it continues with Harris, they have no reason to leave. They won't
Yeah,
have to
I
leave.
guess that's
No one's
true.
going to track them down. So they might as, you know, you can't blame these people. Why go back if you're coming from a poor country or a civil unrest when nobody's making you leave the country and you get every freebie under the sun? If it's a Trump administration based on his 4 years, he put a lot of strict controls in um, at the border. The visas issue has always been a problem in our country. People overstay visas, people ignore the visa,
Right,
meaning student issues, people visiting, people working, work visas. They're supposed to leave and they don't.
right.
Um, and and that's true of many countries. Canadians do it too, right? They have to go back and they don't. And they have rules. You can't just stay here and work for 30 years. I think it's in most cases 10 years. And then you have to reapply or you have to go home for a period of time. Then you can apply to come back again. So I don't know that anybody's going through all that just to come to the World Cup. You know, depending on your country that you're coming from, there are stricter rules coming here from some countries than others,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So
You,
whatever the rules or regs, but I think it depends literally what year and who's running our country at that time.
yeah. Do you think that they'll ask where you'll stay during it so that when their time expires, they know where to find them? I think I don't think they're gonna. That's too hard to tell because there's too many variables to that. How many of them are gonna lie? How many of them are gonna? I don't know. I really. I think the World Cup's gonna be a shit show. I really do. I think it's going to be nice,
Well,
but I think from a travel perspective, I think it's going to be an absolute shit show. I think they're banking on American citizens to go, like Colombian American, Brazilian American, Mexican American to go. I don't think they're going to want. I think it's going to be so much of a pain in the ass to get people from other countries here.
I think an answer to this person's question is we're feeling the strain of it now with
Yeah.
the illegal immigration. That if you're talking by 2028 and things haven't changed and people think they could stay, um, I don't. They may not even have the World Cup here if it's that bad. I
Yeah,
mean, you can really get to
that's
that
true.
point. So that's why I also say, supposedly, Trump is saying that he's going to deport people and he's going to put a system in starting with the criminals. Now, that's not necessarily the people coming to watch the game, but he's talking about the current. And if you put a system in place and it works, and there's a question mark, how's he going to do this? I think if it works well, they will start applying it to say things like student visas, people coming for games or
Yeah.
events, and closing the window a little bit about how long you could stay on those visas.
I have to be honest, being Colombian, it's kind of surprising I lean conservative. Fair.
I don't know. That's not necessarily true, but
No, he was saying he leans conservative. He
no, I
thinks
know.
that, yeah.
I agree. I don't. That doesn't surprise me that much.
What was the most difficult part about raising Chris?
Oh, it continues to today. No,
Yeah.
the difficult part. Uh, he was a joy. He is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
that's pretty easy, I think.
you think it's easy? What's difficult
No,
raising
I
you?
said I feel like I was pretty easy. I don't think out of everyone.
Yeah, I can't. No one thing stands out in my mind about like oh, Chris had this habit of this or that or whatever. But um, I think it was not difficult, but he was the first one to get used to the amount of time and energy he put into what he does with the social media and online. He was the first one, and he went full throttle into it. I wouldn't say it was difficult, but it was not something we were used to because it wasn't of our world. So it
Right.
took us a while to get used to the fact that why is he doing this and he's not out doing something else? Is this really good? And what are the pros and cons? Especially you were doing it when it was just becoming popular or becoming a
Yeah,
thing.
before it was yeah.
I wouldn't say that was difficult. It was just a little bit.
Different, yeah.
Yeah.
What else we got, everyone? Any other questions? I got the downside of Dad waking me up at 8 today to say goodbye was now I'm like starting to crash at a very early time on a
Yeah.
Saturday. I can
What
feel
does that
myself like,
say?
yeah, Dad,
Maybe you should be doing it a little bit more often.
yeah.
Get up a little earlier.
I have to be up early for golf tomorrow.
Well, I'll say this: it wasn't not necessarily difficult with Chris, but we always say this for Chris and Ken, and even Michael. But I won't include Michael because to make the point. Chris was always a certain way, and he was so easygoing in most cases that he always made Kenny look like he was more of a troublemaker than he really was, right? And we're laughing now because both Dad and I were talking to Kenny separately, and I was forewarning like Michael, okay, you just came from Christopher's apartment. You're going to Kenny's. You have to have a different
Very different, yeah.
expectation.
It's true.
It's always true. Different kids have different ways of doing things, and you have to adjust.
Did you talk about the Hezbollah leader being killed? Shortest reign of all time. Did you see that? Shortest range of a terrorist leader. Right? Israel took out one of their guys today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so, guys. I'm gonna be honest. I don't even really pay attention anymore.
They are making quite a dent in the Hezbollah leadership. I mean, I think, taking a step back and looking at the overall picture of that, Hamas really made a mistake with that attack. Let me tell you, they are paying a price, and I know everyone wants to push back and blame Israel, but they have given Israel every reason to cut loose, and I'm shocked at the extent of what they are knocking out in the Hezbollah leadership.
Yeah.
That's been simmering for a while, and Hamas really in my opinion, they really made a mistake with that one. They poked a bear, and they were not prepared for the response. And keep in mind, this is Israel being held back. The United States keep telling them, you got to stay on defense, not offense. Don't go after them. Imagine if they were on full offense, if they were allowed to, cut loose and do what they need to do. So it's very sobering to see what's going on. And I'm surprised that more of the pro-Palestinian people aren't, cooling their jets a little bit and saying, whoa, we need to rethink this. Mm. You poke a bear, you can't turn around and then blame the bear, right?
Right.
That's what they're doing.
What are your thoughts on the Venezuelan gang taking over the apartment complex in what state was that? Michigan? Wisconsin? Colorado. So from what I've heard from people that are over there, it's like one crappy apartment complex, which isn't like it definitely got blown out of proportion from what I've heard. And then it also sounds like the cops have pretty much got them out of there anyway. Like it really became like a nothing story to my understanding. But
I look at it differently.
Go ahead.
This is a problem, and that's all we've heard about. I think it's much worse.
Really?
I think that's just what's gotten attention. I think it's happening in a lot of cities. And let's just pause for a minute here and say, this is the United States of America. The fact that any gang from another country is arming themselves and going into, I don't care if it's crappy buildings, I don't care where
that's true.
Is. This is not a third world country. Well, it's becoming it. And as a citizen, we have to put our foot down. I don't care if it's a one-off thing. I don't think it's a one-off. I think it's a lot worse than people realize. Problem is nobody's bringing it to a national attention. That story got national attention, and that the mayor of that city tried so hard to tamp it down and make it sound like it was no big deal. It is a big deal. You have a military-type presence in our country controlling an area. And, in Europe, part of their problem is they have a lot of no-go zones. And we're getting that here in this country. And I don't tolerate it as a citizen to have a place where you can't go because a Venezuelan gang. I don't care if it's the floor of an apartment building. You can't go there because of Venezuelan. That sends a very bad signal to a lot of other gang groups around here. And I'm personally getting sick. We had our own problem with our own gangs. Now I got to deal with gangs from other countries.
Yeah. We good, guys? Anything else? We just did like almost an hour and a half.
Shout out to the people in Florida.
Yeah, the ones that
Tennessee, parts of North Carolina, parts of Georgia,
Everyone watching?
parts of Louisiana. I know we've so far I've seen 44 lives were lost.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. All the hurricane.
the hurricanes, yes. The people on the Gulf
What's up, Blue
Coast,
Ninja?
parts of Florida, you know. Got
Yeah.
a shout out to the Floridians who took it at a Cat 4. They took the hardest punch, and then it got a little bit lesser, but we're talking Cat 3 as it progressed up the central part there. And a lot of places that aren't used to hurricanes got hit.
Uh.
And just an aside, I was so angry because right before the hurricane was coming, or as it was coming, I saw some article about the Biden administration is talking about giving another 8 billion to Ukraine. And that just really irked me because we're about to have a hurricane hit our country and everyone's telling you it's going to be bad. Is that really time to be giving more money to a war?
Right. No, you can ask more questions, guys. You keep going. Two countries you would never visit apart from India. There's a lot. There's a lot more than two.
India? Or maybe because I've said that before, I'd never go to
Yeah.
India. No, it's funny.
Yeah. Uh.
I'm going to say this. We have a friend of the family who's from,
What?
um, what is it? Thailand, I guess, Asia. When I read stories like a woman was in her kitchen and she got wrapped up by a python while she was cooking dinner and was suffocating for like an hour. I'm not laughing, but was stuck in her kitchen until somebody came and helped her. I hear stories like that, and I'm like, yeah, no, I never need to go there. I never need to go to Thailand. I never need to, deal with that. The pythons.
Yeah. After seeing snakes, yeah, I'm like, ugh. Yeah. I wouldn't go to like any of the Iraqs or Irans. That's really like I have no reason. Like those
Yeah,
are the ones
I'm
that
not.
bother me.
There are a few places in the Middle East that I would like to see Egypt, but certainly not now. It would be cool to see the pyramids, to see those types of places. What are you doing?
Well, I'm sending something. No. I'm looking up something real fast.
Oh, so yeah, I can't think of too many. I mean, I don't need to go to Antarctica or any of those cold places. I don't need to go to the North Pole. It's
Yeah.
cold. There's snow. I'm dying to go see that.
What do you think about HA? I'm never touching France. What do you think about HAARP and weather modifications when it comes to global warming and climate change? Well, again, I'm not one of those people that believes that climate change isn't an issue, but I do believe that the numbers that they give us are completely wrong. I remember when I was in college in 2018, 2016, there was a study that came out that basically said all the numbers that we have been used for global warming, that we have been using for all of our basic studies, just didn't exist. Like they just like it just was completely wrong, and they decided not to change anything. They were like, we can keep working with it. So that's why I never go by anything when it comes to like I'll go to a real scientist that we work with that will tell me what's right and what's wrong, and even he's like, it's not really a big deal. When it comes to changing the weather, the only countries that really do that is Dubai, and usually that is because of the storms. They'll make these storms, and the storms, I think they've only had one that got completely out of hand. And that was the one that caused some major flooding because they did something. Listen, don't mess with Mother Nature. That's all I want to say. But I don't think that we're at the point where we're really doing massive damage to the atmosphere. Like, it's funny how Mother Nature knows how to kind of heal itself. So we were talking about this on one of the podcasts recently, but the polar ice caps, even though we talk about how they melt, every year they refreeze. So it just ends up staying in a state of a cycle, essentially, like just a constant cycle. So do you think,
Well,
oh, go ahead.
just to your
Yeah.
original, a lot of the studies that came out from multiple sciences and agencies, it was proven around that time that you were saying people were going through the data. And it's not that all these people, their data was wrong. They were all basing it on an original piece of data that turned out to be flawed. So from that primary data, all these other scientists and organizations generated all these climate issues and this is what's going to happen. They weren't necessarily wrong, but when you turn around and say, yeah, but the data you based it on, we proved was wrong.
Well, yeah.
To your point, they didn't want to change it at that point because now they had a narrative. Don't look at the original data, go by us. Everything's wrong. We're all experts in the field. We're all going to have, climate change and issues.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I also like when you break down the numbers of percentages, like when we talk about the pollution, who does it the worst, like we only make up 13% of the world's global warming issues. So think of how quote unquote bad we are. If everyone else is worse and it's not getting that much worse totally, from like a global perspective, it's not that bad.
well, it's a funny thing. I was shopping with your grandmother's in upstate New York, and I always get triggered when I go to the food store because for us in New York and New Jersey and other states, we have to bring our own bags now. They don't allow plastic bags. So they had us recycling for how many years, wadding these bags up, taking them to the stores. Then you meet somebody from the store who would say, yeah, we just throw them out anyhow. So here I'm recycling these bags that they would just put in the garbage. But I would like to say to all the people who have been doing this, I have yet to hear anybody say, well, at least we've cut down on that. You never hear a positive. I've been recycling now or bringing my own bags for over 2 years. Okay? You can't tell me, have we made any dent? No. Instead, I keep hearing the same doom and gloom. Oh, the plastic is still bad. And oh, the pollution's still bad. Well, I've been recycling now since you were a little kid. Did we make any improvement? No. So basically, the whole recycling thing was a scam because apparently the climate and the world is still polluted and is still a mess. Okay? So why are we doing all this?
I still have yet to hear of a single turtle that's died from a straw. Just throwing that out there. Do you think Diddy was running a blackmail operation on Hollywood people to gain power and leverage? He might be a fall guy. I think he was working for Hollywood trying to gain power, but I don't think he was controlled by anyone. I think he's just a guy that became so powerful and knew what he can do with that power so that he could blackmail people. I don't think he was a fall guy. I think there were many people that knew what he was doing and didn't stop him. That's really what it was. I'm sure he had a whole business behind the scenes about that, using all that data and all that blackmail. So I think it's going to be one of those things where I think it's going to come out that there's a lot of crazy stuff that he was doing, but I don't think there's going to be like higher. It's not completely like an Epstein situation where there's other politicians and stuff involved.
I'm sure there was a time where Jeffrey Epstein felt like he was untouchable and nothing would ever happen to him.
Yeah. Do you think there should be a policy to stop major corporations to own multiple houses and then rent them out? Like own basically an entire street and then rent them all out? So if you're alluding to BlackRock, I would say yes, because BlackRock has such a hold on the why am I struggling with the word? The real estate franchises in this country. If you're talking about like a one company that owns maybe a couple hundred houses or land, whatever, that doesn't bother me as much. Whereas like people don't understand the roots that something like BlackRock has. Like they make thousands of shell companies just to own more land. Like it's insane for real estate. I'm scared to know. Like if I was to look up what percentage of the country BlackRock owns, I think that number would scare the shit out of me. So.
No, I mean BlackRock it's an investment thing. They have 401ks. They have people's money that's invested with them. I mean it's huge, and the big concern with and I've seen a lot of this lately too. Some politicians are really pushing about the Chinese influence of owning our land in this country. It's really becoming a concern and it's not getting enough attention to have foreign entities come in and own it. And places like BlackRock, quote unquote American, there's a lot of investment in these businesses that are foreign.
American, yeah.
And they're owning our property, they're owning our buildings, and there's a real concern for somebody like me looking at the future and the direction our economy and our government's going in and the cultural direction that your generation's going in. It's a scary thought because they could literally get to the point where they're going to say, I'm going to tell you where you're going to live. You're not going to own anything. You're going to work and 50% of your check will from the government. Right. So when you put that control into, one group that is not just a real estate company. It's involved in a lot of stuff and very far reaching. You really put your whole economy at risk. And it does, honestly, government is supposed to be there to protect the people. Economically, our borders, defensively. That's what we pay them in theory to do. That's why you pay taxes. It's not to, pay off people, get money, and let them take over our country. So they really government may need to step in when places like, or entities like BlackRock, when they own just too much, because they're not just a real estate company. They're a lot more.
Yeah. Like, people don't understand the stranglehold that they have. Do you think a big... Wait, what? We can't predict the future. Do you think the big earthquake will happen in California and Yellowstone and destroy major cities from a 9.5 or greater? I have no knowledge on that.
Well, they're talking about it.
Is there? I've seen nothing on that. Really?
Listen, I've heard about California breaking off and floating out into the Pacific Ocean since I was a little kid. Not to say that it can't happen. They are on a major fault line, and it goes all the way down the state. But yeah, I mean, back to what we were originally saying, you can't change Mother Nature. They've had their share of earthquakes. Your grandparents were out there in northern part one time when they had a bad earthquake, or they were about to go and something got changed. I forget. But yeah, they've had their share of earthquakes out there. They know what to expect, and hopefully it doesn't happen. But I wouldn't want to live there when they're predicting these huge magnitude earthquakes every other week.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Going once, going twice?
It's like my friend down in Florida, I remember saying, how do you deal with the hurricanes and stuff? And the comment was, it's the price you pay when you live in paradise.
Yeah.
That's straight up in California. Hey, did you see that mansion that was loaded with graffiti?
Yeah, the guy even apologized for, one of the, I think it's like the Dallas Cowboys or it's one of the owners' house. They were gone for a month, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
Would you want there to be a law where government workers can't invest into the stock market as well as their spouses? I don't want that, but I do want a law that says if you are going to invest in stuff, I think if you're going to run for office and be part of the government, I think when it comes to the financials of what you are putting your finances into and when you sell and whatnot, I think that should be public. I think that should be public for any one working in politics at that level.
Our governmental people are not above the law. We have rules and regs in the SEC of what we can and cannot trade. It's something called insider trading. People go to jail for that, right? For a long time. Just because it's the government, there's insider information that you have if you know that you're going to have votes going one way or the other. And it is something that can be policed. It's just something they choose not to do.
Yeah. What will you prioritize when a nuclear winter happens in your region? You got any plans? No, I have no plans. It's over for me at that point.
A lot of iodine pills.
A lot of iodine. There you go.
There's really not, it's just...
You're not winning that one.
We can't get to that point, people. We really can't. Now we're talking the Fallout series, right? We're all living in bunkers and trying
basically.
to make a life. And it's just a shame if we get so close. We are teetering on that point if we're not careful, but hopefully we get through the next couple months and we have a change from our perspective, from the U.S., of how we deal with other people. I think that'll make a difference. But yeah, there's nothing positive about that.
Well, I think that's it, guys. Anyone else? Any more? Going once, going twice? You just want to finish before 9:30, right?
That was a lot of questions.
Yeah. What AI do you think the population? With AI, do you think the population of Japan will plummet? Why is that? Why Japan specifically? I don't think. I mean, the birth rate in our country, in the world, is at an all-time low. So I don't know why just Japan.
Well, isn't Japan the most, especially Tokyo, the most densely populated city based on its size?
I don't know. Maybe that's true.
Making that up? Maybe I'm making that up, but I don't know how AI would necessarily impact that with Japan any more than any place else.
Yeah, Japan, maybe because of the technological, how much they rely on technology, but I don't know if it would cause the population to plummet.
Of AI. Interesting.
Yeah, no, I can do that.
Or do they? I mean, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know how Japan, from a power source. where they get all their oil from.
They already have a very low birth rate and marriage barely happens. Really? Yeah, I don't know those
Interesting.
statistics. I don't know why. I'm sure there's going to be something else that affects that before AI does. I don't think AI is going to have really an effect if it's already dropping. But oh yeah, to your point, right? They will now pay Americans to go over to Japan just to have kids. Like that's how low it is. So there's a couple countries doing that now. Yeah.
But as to your point, that's universal now.
Yeah, I guess Japan has a really low one, but I have no clue.
And here I thought they were the most populated area that I know China has a lot of people, obviously,
I
but
I wonder if the ratio is weird though of males to females, and that's why. Because if it has a
yeah,
weird ratio.
it would be because they didn't have the China policy. Like they
Yeah,
obviously messed it up with the one child rule, and it was all males. So now they had to scramble to find females for an entire generation to keep
it's just
the
not
country
working. Yeah,
populated. Right. So, learning from that mistake, once again, when government tries to force things, it sometimes it usually backfires.
yeah,
Interesting question.
yeah. Anything else? Any other questions? We'll give it a few. I'm just gonna run to the bathroom real fast while they ask.
That's an odd time.
Sorry, I gotta go. Too much water.
Odd time to go take a bathroom break. Leaving me hanging. I can't even see the questions, folks. Sorry. Can't help you with that. But I have to say, there are good questions tonight. I really don't know. I know Japan is a strong ally of ours, and I know it's a very strong economy. I've never really known about their. Chris brought up a good point. I don't know their demographics and their male female ratio. We had a friend who lived in China many years ago, and he lived in the States, went back home, got married, and had a daughter out there. Um, but I don't really know too many people from Japan.
Yeah, I think China got rid of the one child policy a while ago, though. I think they got rid of that one child policy a bit.
Yes, they had to back that one up because that became quite the mistake. They were starting to see their demographics change. But I was just saying about Japan. I don't really know. I never realized they had an issue with that.
Do you ever do you ever worry about the human race dying because of all the microplastics found in all the seawater and drinking water? I I don't think so. I've definitely seen some stuff on that, but there's just not enough evidence to show that that's ever going to happen. Our bodies are more likely to adjust because it's such a minuscule amount rather than be affected by it.
Well, I'm definitely not drinking as much bottled water. I always say
Yeah,
to your brother,
I
stop with the
was
bottled.
everything filtered now.
Yeah, I'm doing the filtered water, which they'll probably find something wrong with that too eventually, that something's in the filter, the plastic.
Yeah,
But for the most part, if you're going to drink water, they always say nothing to excess, right?
yeah.
Nothing to excess. So if you got to mix it up, a bottle of water once in a while, I don't think it's going to kill you. But microplastics, who would have thought? Where's all this stuff coming from?
Do you think that Scientology will fall one day? I think the opposite. I think it's going to get bigger because the one thing about Scientology is, unfortunately or unfortunately, depending how you look at it, with Scientology, it's the thing that there's actual measurements. Like it's things that you can actually piece together. That's why it's so alluring. You don't have to go by a belief system as much. You can just go by scientific evidence. So I think the more, it really depends on where the world goes, I think. If we keep going down this slope, I think people are going to lose a form of religion or religion in general and go towards that Scientology route. Like when I hear the word atheist or, well, more so the atheist, the one that believe in nothing, usually they have a lot of the same ideas and concepts as the Scientologists. It's just that they just don't care. Like they're the atheists are just like, okay, yeah, it's going to happen.
The little bit I know or my understanding of Scientology, it's very self-based. A lot of it has to do with things about you to improve you. That was the appeal. My friend was reading about it when I was in college, so that was in the 1980s. L. Ron Hubbard, I think, started it, but um, it was a fat book, and a lot of it was like things to improve yourself, how to be centered, all about you. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that was more the religion of how to make you better. I could be wrong. Scientologists can weigh in.
Mm.
And I think that might be why it's appealing to people when nobody wants God. Nobody feels the arrogance of people today feel I don't need God anymore. He's been replaced by the internet, by AI, by all this other stuff, right?
Do you think that the Elizabeth? Well, we already kind of talked about that one, Blue Ninja, so I might skip that one. We got enough time for like maybe 2 or 3 more questions. We'll probably wrap this up at like 9:15. But yeah, we already answered that one towards the beginning, Blue Ninja. So I don't want to reiterate what we said about fraud.
It ain't good.
Yeah, it's not good.
Summarize. Fraud ain't good.
Oh, man, I'm really starting to take a hit here with the. I'm blaming Dad with the sleep.
You have the lavender going right now? Are you sucking in the lavender?
The lavender's in my room.
Isn't that intriguing how something like that can have an effect on you?
It is. It's pretty amazing. But also, that dehumidifier thing, the diffuser, has like a. It's. I guess I put my ratios wrong or something. It is a strong smell. I haven't really used it yet for sleeping. Yeah, I put in whatever I could fill up with the tincture. I just put in. Essentially, it was only like this much, but it's enough that I was like, whoa. Favorite element on the periodic table and a fun fact about it. Probably uranium. I just like saying uranium.
Favorite element. Well, the easy one is carbon, because organic matter is based on carbon. Yeah. Pretty important.
That's a good one.
I always like the gases at the end. Neon, argon. They all do funky stuff.
Yeah.
Like the lights and the argon. When I was younger, that was always my favorite to fill in chem, because you got to use those. This is how old I am. You got to use those crayons that were the weird colors, like the highlighter pen colors. Ooh, mixing it up a little.
Do you think the bird flu will become a pandemic anytime soon? A COVID 2.0 event, more lockdowns? Man, I don't know. I think people are so sick of lockdowns because there was never. If you gave us like a bubonic plague where people are like dropping left and right, like you're losing friends and stuff, then that's what's gonna make or break a lockdown. I think after COVID, I think people were like, this lockdown's kind of stupid. We actually lost more in business and everything else that we're never doing that again. I think it's kind of a unanimous decision on both sides of the political spectrum that COVID was kind of a bullshit time in our history. So. Yeah,
a very sad time because it was a lot of unnecessary deaths. Too many unnecessary deaths. Too many things that will. The sad part is we'll never know because we don't have accurate information because a lot of it was shut down and we we're allowed to have accurate information. So even if we could look back after the dust settles and see what actually happened, it's going to be very hard to figure all that out. Although, more and more people are now coming out and saying with the data we do know, it was, to your point, Chris, I remember seeing the videos of people dropping dead on the streets of China and we found out later on that was all contrived.
Yeah.
Or they were pictures from other things that they just kept repeating over and over. So, the propaganda machine. It's a great question because we have something called the October surprise. And by the way, October is on Tuesday. Right before an election, you have the October surprise. And people are wondering, what is that going to be? Just how extreme. They keep bringing up the bird flu. They tried the monkeypox. They couldn't get traction with that. Now I'm hearing about the bird flu. And every now and then you see a headline of, they had to slaughter 1,000 chickens in some farm. All this cattle. It's a concern, but the few doctors that I've read that I trust from the COVID experience are all saying, unless you work with chickens or with birds that are contaminated.
Don't have to worry about it.
It's very difficult for it to get to humans. Could it morph? Sure. Could some nefarious person be working in a lab right now in some freaky country trying to figure out how to do that? Well, we learned that is surely a possibility, but hopefully we got a handle on. I'd like to think that if we get one thing right out of COVID is we've learned how to deal better with those situations.
Agreed.
Who knows?
All right, guys, we'll wrap it up there because it's already 9:15 and Mom has to do something with the dog pretty soon. So Guys, thanks for showing up for, what is this, 110, I
Thank you.
think, or something like that. Great questions.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, we'll definitely do this. As I said, we try to shoot for once a month with these. And yeah, that's really it. So this will be posted tomorrow or on Monday as well if you want to rewatch it and all that, unedited. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Only things I have to promote, obviously, we're just still plowing through the Wukong walkthrough. I'm gonna start doing those as a live streams pretty soon now that our internet's better. Especially this internet being fixed is fantastic because now we can start doing the long form content again, that like the live walkthroughs. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Social media, promo code, stream links, Discord down below, and hopefully I will see you guys on Monday, and you'll see Mom maybe next week. So later, guys. Have a good one.